Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, this is the beginning of hopefully not hopefully, by Krishna's grace, we'll go through the whole Bhagavad Gita, 10 verses at a time each week, and we're going to start on the second chapter because we did the first chapter several months ago and we've taken a break. But now we're going to start on the second chapter, and by this time next year, we'll hopefully be in the 15th, 16th chapter, because we intend to do it every week. And even if you can't join in any particular week, that's okay, because we're going to have it on Facebook as well, by Krishna's grace. Yeah, it's working. Oh, good. So and we'll have different speakers at different times, and we'll have a few. I'm going to be one of the probably anchor ones. So I'll do it anyway. People are here or not, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And but at different times, I'm not here, then other people will come, visitors will come. But it's the same format. Like it's a kind of a way that we want to actually study Bhagavad Gita, because it would be fantastic to have it here in Dublin, that there's an actual Bhagavad Gita as it is course going on, and people will be following it. So the format, we're going to keep it quite simple. We're just going to read the English verses, the whole 10 of them, and then I'll go back and take out some points from the purports. Not all of the purports, but just some of them. Because it would be the class will last for 1 hour in total. We can have some questions or even reflections at the end. People can say what they're thinking about it, and but mainly that will get kind of better if people can study it at home. If they go through the 10 verses at home and read the purports, because the purports, Prabhupada's purports are Bhaktivedanta purports. They're completely liberating. They will bring us to the spiritual world. And the more we study Bhagavad Gita, the more that happens as well. So, without further ado, I could ask everybody to say a verse. The only difficulty is that if it's recording on Facebook, not everybody might hear it. If people are listening in that sense. So unless people they want to say it, but they have to speak out very loud, and so people can hear. Or will I just read it myself, or
is recording the audio as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Should be loud enough for that speaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's say the people at the front, and Nigel, if you want to move up, you can. But people at the front, and then speak out loud. Laura doesn't always speak that loud. But
can you sit next to me?
don't worry, it's fine. Okay, so I'll start, and we'll take a verse each. Are you ready for this? Rina, you can see it.
Chapter 2.
It's chapter 2, text number 1. Okay, I'll start. You're allowed to read the Sanskrit if you like, because Sanskrit is lovely, but it's not everybody can read it that well. So, but if you like, but English we definitely will. Sanjaya vacha, tam tata, kripaya vishtam, ashrupurna. Kulekshanam Vishitantam idam vakyam Uvacha Madhusudana. Sanjaya said, Seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words. No, just the verse.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Kutastva Kasmalam Idam
Kutastva Kasmalam Idam
Vishame Samupasitam
Anarya
Justam Asvargyam
Akirti Karamarjuna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy."
Klaivyammasmagama partha
Naibhyamasmagama partha
naitat tvai upapadyate
Naitatvai upapadyate
Shudram hridaya daurbalyam
Siddham hridaya durlabhyam
Jakvatishta parantapa.
Chaktavatishta pantapa.
O son of Pritha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy.
Yeah.
Arjuna Uvaka Katam Vishwa Aham Kare Trunam Manu Sudana Ishubhi Patish Yami Puya Hari Sudana. Arjuna said, "O killer of enemies, O killer of Manu, how can I counter attack with arrow in battle men like Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship?"
Nigel, did you want to read one?
In the fifth.
Fifth, yes.
Yes. Gurun Atva Hi Manu Bhavan Sreyo Bhaktum Vaikshyam Apiha Loke Advarta Kaman Tu Gurun Ivaiva Bununjia Bogan Rudira Radigan. So it would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the life of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with love.
Nai chaitad vidma kataram nagariyo yadva jayema yadiva no jayatu yad eva hatva najijivas samas te vasti pram mukhe shrishtra. Now we do not know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield.
Karpanya dasupahata swabhava prachamitvam dharma samudachita yashrayasyan nisitam buhitam me sisyatem ham sadimam tvam papanam. Now I'm conscious about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me.
Nahi prapashyami mamanu, nahi prapashyami mama panudyat yachchokam uchashanam indriyanam avapya pumav asapatnam ritham rajam suranam api chadipatyam. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty over the demigods in heaven.
Eva Buddha, Rishikesha, Buddha, Kesha, Paran, Tava, Manu, Iti, Govindo, Buddha, Tushmin, Bhakuva, Krishna said, having spoken this, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell in silence.
Oh, sorry, I don't really know my question. Who's Govinda in this, because he said Govinda, I should not fight.
The name for Krishna.
It's the other name for Krishna, okay. So, Tam Vaka Arsi Kesa Prasan Vivavarata Snayor Ubayor Marie Visidantam Idam Vaka. So in other words, O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna.
That's great. Amagadatunandasya Janandana Shalakaya Tat Shakshuran Militamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's very interesting in the first few verses and purports here, some real classical analogies Prabhupada starts to use. And the first thing is that he highlights about the use of words, and like the words he calls. Arjuna says to Krishna, he calls by him by the name of Madhusudana, and there's a whole context to this because Krishna killed the demon Madhu, and now Arjuna is in a situation, and Krishna's asking him to kill his relatives, So Arjuna, even by using the words, Madhu or Madhusudana, he's implying that, Krishna, you killed Madhu. That's totally understood because he's a demon. But now you're asking me to kill my relatives. So there's little subtleties going on here as well between Krishna and Arjuna. The next point that Prabhupada talks about is the word compassion. Compassion for the dress of a drowning man. That's how Prabhupada puts it. And he uses that analogy quite a lot, actually. He's used it in many situations throughout his books and throughout his lectures. That is a person who's drowning in an ocean, and then somebody goes to save them, and then they come back with their coat and say, "Look, I saved him." He says, "No, they didn't save him. He's sure he's drowned. You've only got the coat. What's the use?" And it's such an important one because, especially in today's world, whereby there is this huge emphasis. If anybody does anything good, then it means that they've given some food to the poor, or they've opened a hospital, or they've helped. They've bought some new university, or they've given them money for a new university wing, and these are all, in society, these are all considered wonderful things to do, and they are. There is room for that, definitely. But as devotees, we see that there is a much deeper level going on, and the real compassion is for the person who is the soul, and that's where real compassion is like knowledge. We have to give knowledge to people so that they know who they are. Because if they know who they are, then they can do something about it. But if I remember one devotee gave an example, which is not this from here, but of a map. You know, if you give somebody, you say, I want to go somewhere, he says, oh, here you are, there's a map. But if you don't know where you are on the map, it's how can you get there, you know? So in the same way, you need to get to the spiritual world, and this is all kind of pathways, which maps how to get there. But at the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, especially in this chapter, Krishna starts the instruction about the soul and about what's the difference between the body and the soul. And believe it or not, it's going to last for the whole lifetime for us, because although we know it theoretically, how to act on that platform is the next thing. And that's where we get trained, and that's why we associate with people who are not on the bodily platform, and they're not on the mental platform. They're on the spiritual platform. So therefore, this example will hold throughout of the drowning man. I always chip in with this point as well, that still, if we're not necessarily on that platform, if we serve the devotees who are on that platform, then we also become part of the whole system of the parampara. It's like the example of the postman. You know, is the postman actually funny? Quite interestingly enough, that the postman has been posting the wrong letters to our door for the last while. And he came again this morning, and I said, wait, there's the wrong one. That's for the other street, you know. So he said, very, very, very sorry, you know. And he gave me 2 parcels to sign for, and then one of those parcels was the wrong one as well. So I said, hey, come back. You're putting in, you're not being a proper postman. But we should be the proper postman by delivering Krishna consciousness. And one of the best ways to deliver Krishna consciousness is to distribute these books. I've found out another interesting way to distribute books, and that is some of the charity shops. You can sponsor a few books and put them in charity shops, because apparently they sell very well. One of our devotees who works in a charity shop in a Concern or Oxfam, I think it is, he actually bought 10 books for, just because all the National Council members, that was their duty. Everyone had to give out 10 books for at least 10 books for Christmas. And so what he did is he works in that shop, so he bought 10 books, put them there, and they all went very quickly.
You know, there was one thing that was surprised. I went just at the store nearby.
Yeah.
Really?
Eason's?
Yeah, exactly like 10 meters away from here. And you know what? There is one department which is for the philosophy or religion, and there wasn't the book. So I mean, it's kind of, I would say, opportunity as well for.
That's very good, because funny, we brought that up when we were talking at the last National Council meeting, and the devotee said, and I remember him doing it, he used to put books in Eason's all the time, and they would sell quite well also. So yeah, I think that there's time now to start doing that again. That would be another great opportunity. So that is the way in which we can actually give the knowledge to people, and that's actually, saving the actual drowning man and not saving the suit, is by giving these books. Because if somebody even just reads one word, touches the book, anything, their spiritual life has begun. And as we know later on, Nehavrakamo Nashosti, that's whatever progress anybody makes, that they will never lose that. They will start off from that position straight away in their next life, and they can start off in this life and make volumes of progress, Or even if they read the mantra, just like when we were giving out those leaflets yesterday, some people, they would just read the mantra, immediately their spiritual life has begun. So we're like the peon then immediately, and therefore we become connected to the parampara system, and therefore we become enlightened, because the information itself is not like we have to really study and study and study. We do have to study, but it's descending. It's descending knowledge. You can't kind of force it to come down just because you study really hard and therefore it's bound to happen. No. And in fact, you'll find a lot of the time that some people who are very learned still may not have cleared the anger or lust or greed in their heart, and because it's not just by learning that you can do that. It has to come from Krishna cleanses from within. The persons who have really, the verse is that one who's developed the urge to hear these messages. That's like everyone here this evening. They want to hear the message of what Krishna is saying. So just by that activity, then the soul is clear. Krishna actually cleanses, and I remember one devotee, Satyananda Maharaj, it's very kind of humorously in one book. It's not that we make that Krishna is some sort of a cleaner. That's not what it is, But it's that Krishna is so merciful that he will come and actually he will even do that for the living entity, because that urge, that's the word called lolium. That's the desire, to hear. That's what we do. That's what we give, and then Krishna does the rest. But once Krishna sees that, it's funny. It's like and I heard another devotee explaining about how Krishna is responsive. It's not as if Krishna is not aware of every single one of our thoughts. He's actually can hear it immediately. But usually we don't want to be there, But if we develop this urge, then Krishna will respond reciprocally. Yayatamam papajante tamstataiva pajamyaham. Actually, he will respond even 10 times more than we respond towards him. That's Krishna's incredible potency. That's probably the basis of us actually learning or understanding Krishna consciousness, is so that we can make that endeavor to hear.
It's because I think we are some kind of portal in the sense that we are communicating in this world through all the words or the feelings that we have learned.
Yeah.
Makes sense, no?
No, it does. Yeah, exactly. Once we're in that mood, that does spread, definitely. The next verse is explaining about, my dear Arjuna, how these impurities come upon you. They are not at all befitting a man who knows the true value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy. Yes. So here's Krishna, and then this word that Krishna uses is anarya. Previously, society was set up in a very very positive way, whereby people could work with each other, and they would help each other in the whole pathway back to Godhead. And in fact, the whole atmosphere was surcharged with spirituality, and whatever you were doing, you would actually make progress. And whether the society was divided in such a way that was the goal of society, whereas today that's not the goal of society.
But you know what? No, that's the thing. Like in a sense, and it's very interesting, because what he said in the Bhagavad Gita, Darwin, which was as well a scientist, he used to study, the ants and the bees, how they were collaborating with each other, the animals. And what is very interesting is that the animals collaborate for the benefit of the whole society. In the same way that people in general collaborate for the same.
It's a good example, yeah.
So, the infinite small, or the animal, if you take example from the animals, they are doing very well. So you see, extremely well done.
Yes.
So it's like.
Yeah, we have to have Krishna in the center, and Prabhupada goes on in the next verse, the next purport. He uses this a classic example that he used consistently, and it's the example of the sun. And there's different ways of understanding God. There's 3 different ways that he explains it. There's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And he gives the example of the sun. If you see the sun from a distance, your knowledge of the sun will be, it looks like a hot disk from a distance. You don't really see that much about it. If you go closer and you kind of study maybe with the telescope the actual sun itself, you'll see there's different parts of the sun. You'll see much more variety in the sun. But then if you actually, Prabhupada uses this example that can know the sun, the student who can enter into the heart of the sun planet is compared to those who realize the personal features of the absolute truth. And that's a typical example Prabhupada uses. I suppose, I'm not going to give my own kind of version on that, but I was even thinking about the Earth planet. You could say that, you know, you're looking at the globe from a distance. What's the Earth? That looks like a globe. But if you go very closer and you study from closer in, it looks like, yeah, I see there's lots of countries and there seems to be people there. But then if you go and you actually start to meet the people and you start to talk to them, and there is people, that's much greater knowledge. You'll know much better about the Earth in that way. Yeah. I've often heard that example about the mountain. You see a mountain from a distance, yeah, you know, that's what you're meant to know about it. But then if you go closer, you'll see that there's all sorts of people on the mountain, maybe, or houses or whatever. But then when you go right up to the mountain, you can start to speak to the people. So these are just examples of, you know, the different, the Prabhupada's classical example of the different ways of understanding Krishna. And the first example is called impersonal understanding, or the Brahman, you know, the energy of God, you know. And people will get, sometimes that's as far as they'll go. They'll draw a line. They've got to the energy of God, and they're not going to go that much further. Then there's other people who study the super soul. They understand that there's something within that's within everybody, and they will worship the super soul within. But then ultimately, persons will get to know and hear about Krishna when we see the beautiful form of Lord Chaitanya here in the Panchatattva, and in the other temples you see the beautiful form of Krishna and Radha, and you'll hear all the wonderful pastimes that are going on in the spiritual world. That is actually the ultimate understanding of God, you know. So this example is initially brought in here by Prabhupada, and I think it's very nice the way he's setting the whole thing up. These purports are absolutely brimful of understanding. Another famous classical example that he gives is the word Bhagavan, and he quotes Parashara Muni, and this is a good one to know, a good one to learn, because people are asking about God, and God is, people think, is a very abstract concept. But Parashara Muni's specific way of explaining was that God is full in 6 opulences: beauty, strength, knowledge, renunciation, wealth, and fame. So these 6 things. We'll see people today. I give the example, David Beckham. Right? He's a football player. People probably know him in lots of places. He's very famous. He's even quite attractive. But, you know, 50 years' time, he's not going to be that attractive, if not before, you know. And his fame will have gone. There'll be Peter Beckham or Johnny Beckham or something. There'll be somebody else who'll be more famous. But Krishna has all of those things in full. He has all the wealth. He's all this knowledge, all the renunciation. So Krishna is fully fitted out with all that. So probably again, immediately, he's putting this point throughout, you know, that this is how you know God. It's you can actually, God is tangible, and you can see how to recognize who God is. So Prabhupada is immediately getting into this this understanding. And we'll notice I'm going to be bold enough to take, I'm not going to quote it exactly, it's a point from Ridananda Maharaj's Bhagavad Gita. He makes a very clear explanation as well, and it's brilliantly presented as that because people make a confusion between God and the living entity, and sometimes they say the living entity is God, or we're all one, or something like that, some crazy some idea like that. But Bhagavad Gita doesn't say that. But people try to make that out from Bhagavad Gita. But in the text of Bhagavad Gita, the word Bhagavan is used very clearly. Each time it talks about Bhagavan, it's clearly Krishna. Whereas when he uses the word the Jiva is clearly not as powerful as Bhagavan. I mean, it's the word Jiva is used many, many times to indicate the living entity, not Bhagavan. The living entity is different from Bhagavan.
That's what I agree, because, you know, that's, I mean, if I can just say, in other religions, sometimes they personify God as, or the Son of God as being, you will find easily what kind of religion I'm talking about, but like as being a human, and which is, like, from what I've studied so far, has not been true, because obviously a God could not be human in a sense, because he's God, otherwise it's outward. Might be wrong.
No, it's an interesting, that's another specific religious system, all right. And then it's almost immediately afterwards in this purport again, Prabhupada comes up with, and he makes this point, he hammers it through, because even in India, a lot of people find it sometimes difficult to understand who is Krishna Bhagavan, or what about Shiva, what about Brahma, and ultimately he presents the whole Bhagavatam, and the core verses in the Bhagavatam, or the key verse, the Mahavakya verse, is, and he brings it straight in the beginning, Ete chamsa kalat pungsham Krishnas tu Bhagavan swayam indrari vyakulam lokam midayante yuge. This is page 64, by the way. All the lists of incarnations of Godhead submitted herewith are either plenary expansions or parts of the plenary expansions of the Supreme Godhead. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's the proof from Shastra. And it's located in exactly where the Mahavakya verse should be, and the Bhagavatam is considered the fruit of all the Vedic knowledge. All the Vedas,
Different edition, different.
Oh, is it?
It's
Hare Krishna. Which page is it?
70 on this one.
70. Would that be this book here? Oh, it's that one. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Right, no worries.
Yeah.
It's first canto.
I think it's 64 on this one, though. I think you have this one.
I would have to go just in 15 minutes.
Don't worry. No, that's good. Yeah. And then another verse which is powerful comes up as well. There, or just, I thought it was just there as well. I'm disappointed now. What was it before? Oh yeah, which is the Ishupanishad. Do you know that one? Can you say it?
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachinananda Vigraha Anadi Adi Govindam Sarvakarna.
Brilliant. That's it.
Brahma Samhita.
That's from the Brahma Samhita. Sorry, that's from the start of the Brahma Samhita. It's also in the Ishupanishad as well.
The first thing.
Om Purnamada Purnam. It's not Ishupanishad.
Oh, okay, sorry. Good. No, look, we have Dana here. Hare Krishna. Well done. Yeah. It's from the Brahma Samhita, exactly.
Or is it Brahma Sutra?
No, Brahma Samhita. Therefore, as is concluded in the Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma himself, that Lord Krishna is supreme. Yeah, no one is equal to Ishvara Parama Krishna. So it's incredible how this whole purport is even packed with all the key verses. Prabhupada went straight in there, no waiting.
But that's what's most, I would say, confusing in the sense that, sometimes we think that we have run to the wheel, that there are some things that were like, maybe like, how do we know that what is existing now has not existed before? You see what I mean by this?
We just have to be very submissive,
Exactly.
and start to hear, because we can't. You often hear. I've often actually spoke sometimes in Krishna consciousness, but it's often the case. If a person is full, you can't fit anything more in. In other words, if a person is full of all their ideas, they can't take in any other information. Whereas if they become more meek and humble and they realize they don't know very much, then they can be given the knowledge. But you can't take in any more if you're full. And
Okay. It's just like just a reflection,
no, it's good.
Because what's happening in the whole Bhagavad Gita is that it's discussed during the heart period in
Well, look at it here, my dear Arjuna, how these impurities come upon you. They're not at all befitting a man. Arjuna is acting poorly. They do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise. So that's Krishna's really making that point. And that's where bravery can come in Krishna consciousness as well. Is that we have to be determined to follow Krishna and to act as best as we can, because the mind will be throwing things out, and we have to learn to be. Sorry to use an example, Dina, but Dina, like you're practicing downstairs for this is the practice that we have to have there. We have to be always practicing, so that we're ready when the mind comes. We're able to kick it out, and be very you know. Or maybe as Rena would do it in a more gentler yogic kind of way, you know. You know, you have to be very determined, you know, to be able to maybe make that extra stretch or stay that little bit longer, you know. You have to kind of, you know, actually be determined to do that. So that determination is valuable, very valuable in Krishna consciousness. Then in the next verse, which is verse 4, is very interesting. And here's Arjuna again. Arjuna said, "O killer of the enemies." This is again, it's another little, you know, again he's called, "O killer of Manu." Again he says to Krishna, "You're a killer of Manu. How can I counteract the arrows? People like Bhishma and Drona. You killed Madhu, and now you're asking me to kill Bhishma and Drona? What is this?" You know, he's appealing to Krishna like this. So, and then he says, "Gurun ahatva." It would be better in this world to live by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Can anybody remember back to chapter 1 what Arjuna's mode of arguing here? What does this remind you of? He's used arguments like this in chapter 1 why he didn't want to fight. Can you remember? Okay, it is to do with women. Yes. Yeah. Who will protect the women, therefore, yeah. Basically his point is that if you kill all the men who are to protect the women, then the women will be left, you know, if we're going to kill everybody, they'll be left exposed and they will be exploited in that sense. So in the same, this kind of argument is there as well, is that if we kill all the teachers, how will we get knowledge, you know? Because that's nothing, you know, you're almost cutting off the trunk of the tree, because that's the whole point. Like, and it's a good argument, you know, he's certainly not holding back. And even Prabhupada in the purpose says, responsible superiors like Bhishma, the grandfather, and Drona are always worshipable. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not to be offered even a verbal fight. So they are sometimes harsh in their behavior. They should not be harshly treated. This is one aspect which I find in the West, which people kind of find it difficult, is to accept the whole aspect of authority. And sometimes people think that when it's brought up, or if people in the Bhagavatam see it, they'll say it, we should all be submissive, whatever. They think that it's some sort of a ruse to get somebody to be submissive to them. But it's not that at all. Because the Bhagavatam speaker is meant to be transparent in that sense, and that the whole point is that we actually that we can be submissive to Krishna, because that is how we will get the information, and therefore we respect the elders because they have been there for longer and they have understood, or they have practiced in a certain way for longer. Therefore, they have information to give, and it's just a system. Even if you do it, you know, and you're not the loser, you know. Even if you offer respect, you know, even if the person may not be so respectable, even, but if you offer respect, you're not the loser, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, because you are the winner in a sense.
Yeah.
It's always like the thing you have.
Yeah.
It's not what I've read in, it's a Chinese thing. You cannot control always what happens to you, but you can always control yourself. And when you control yourself, you are the winner, even if you don't fight when somebody is verbally fighting.
There's a whole etiquette involved in that, and it's very subtle. But Krishna, it's Krishna's etiquette, you know, and he's set it up in that way, and it behooves us to learn it, because if we can, it gives us that better aspect. Now we can't suddenly also just become Indian and try to, you know, do it artificially, because it won't work. It has to come from the heart. It has to be genuine. You have to learn it, seriously learn it, because you find even people in the West, if it's done artificially, it becomes, and also it's another culture as well. So you have to understand that Krishna consciousness is taking birth in another culture. So not all the rules that apply in one place will apply in the other place as well. But still, if we can, you know, see the essence of what has been explained here, and practice the elements that we can, and at least realize the power involved in it. Then we're more likely to adapt it, and then also to bring it, to increase it, and then the whole Prabhupada, for instance, wanted the rural communities because they're the best systems whereby Krishna consciousness can be practiced. And we're in the city here where it's, there's the tram going on outside and there's people running about and we're being forced in certain ways because we're living in the city. But at the same time we can still take on the essence of these things, and then if we can actually start to progress. Like for instance, there's nothing to stop us from getting up early in the morning. We could get up early and chant and read. That is a sattvic activity, very sattvic, and it's very beneficial. The only person that's stopping us from doing that is ourselves. No, I can't, it's too late. No, I went to bed too late. No, I'm not very good at that. Some of the people can, all the excuses, that's the mind. Manu, you have to kill that enemy, and just get there and start to put these things into practice, and then Krishna will help that. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sins of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live, yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. And then the next one. Now, I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Shishasti ham seti mantra papana. Please instruct me. So there you have this big warrior, he's on the fight, he's on the battlefield. There is all these warriors around him, and his sword is dropping from his hand. And it's not that he's afraid, he's done millions of battles in the past, but it's just he's going to kill these other people who are very dear to him, actually his teachers. And he doesn't know what to do. And he's even arguing, he's making these points, but he's surrendering to Krishna. He's asking Krishna, what can I do? So if Arjuna can do that, then we can do it, because we're not so learned, we're not chatri, we're not in this kind of scenario, and we can call out to Krishna. That's our lucky position in one sense, different from Arjuna. We're not so advanced, so it should be less difficult for us to call out to Krishna, and but that's what we have to do, because we're confused about our duty. Don't think we're confused, and we may get some inspiration at some time and keep on working, but the mind and Maya is there to confuse us again, and we lose heart, and this is what happens to an Arjuna, and that in a certain way he is, and sometimes we get depressed, but we still, if we can keep our practices up, that's a great, and it says later, if we don't eat too much, don't eat too little, sleep too much or don't sleep enough. There's all these little things that we can add into our life which make things that bit easier for us to be more alert. We're prepared to make the sacrifice. As you get older, actually I'm heading more into the Vanapras stage, and that's the stage of penance. And actually I kind of understand that a little bit actually, because there's nothing more to prove to anybody in a certain way. You're not trying to go around and say, I did this, I did that, or you're not trying to make your mark or whatever. You kind of say, okay, that's I haven't been able to make my mark, so I'm not going to make it now. I'm not 20, 21 or 25 or whatever. I can't try to do those same things. So let me just perform a little penance, and let me, for instance, some penance for me is that sometimes when I'm chanting and I get to a certain stage and I don't think I can get beyond it, and I stop and I eat something, or whatever it is, or I might read something, or I might even flick onto what's my latest emails, or worse still, Facebook. No, stop. This is in the morning time, whatever. But in fact, if you know, I'm feeling now is that, well, I'll just perform the penance anyway and see what happens, you know. And actually, it does. It helps, you know. You just so as you can definitely, if you can start earlier, better. As Surumi was saying about, you know, going to these japa retreats. I'm sorry I didn't do it years ago. You know, I'm really sorry I didn't do a japa retreat years ago, because so much I learned, and the ones that I learned, Mahatma did a japa retreat, which I was just even listening to. I was 5 years old, and I found it fantastic. And he gave so much credit to Satchidananda Swami to also set up those retreats initially. He kind of said that that's where it came from. So there's all these different things that we can do, that we can do them earlier rather than later. You know, it can help an awful lot. And sorry, I'll just stop here. And then Krishna says, he says, I knew I wanted to get this. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Now he could do that. Arjuna could actually get this incredible opulence, wealth, eternally almost, you know. But he knows that even if he gave him that, he still doesn't want it, because he knows he won't make him happy. So we should take that on board as well, that even at so much wealth that's available, or whatever little wealth we can get. I know a lot of governments in Northern Ireland, they solved a lot of the difficulties there by throwing money at them from America and from Europe. You know, they got so much funding, like it's unbelievable. It was all to try to stop them stop fighting kids. We'll give you this and give you that, you know. And they literally gave hundreds and hundreds of millions, and still are. And the guys probably were clever. Okay, we'll take the money. We'll stop fighting, you know. And but still, they're not going to be happy. They're okay. There's probably a little bit more peace at the moment, but then, you know, you don't know. It's just at the drop of a switch, the whole thing could conflagrate again for some other reason. And also, if you look at the richest nation on earth, in America, they're all suffering from taking opiates. So many of them, millions of people are suffering from legal drugs, which are pain relievers. Some of the biggest drug companies, they went around, they did all these seminars in different towns explaining about pain relief, because everyone wants to get relief from pain, give me a pill, you know. And instead of giving these opiates, which are highly addictive, they're apparently they're as bad as heroin. And now there's literally, I think something like 5 million people that are hooked on these things, on these legal, these prescribed drugs, and they're trying to get them off them now, you know. So even Trump he sees the problem there, you know, and it's incredible. So this is the happiest nation with the greatest amount of wealth and the greatest amount of opiates. I mean, the place has been flooded with cocaine from everywhere. Most people, you know, they're so in pain that they have to take narcotics and intoxication to numb themselves in the pain. And this is happening very early on. And you know, if Prabhupada at one time said, if a person who's very young, this would be maybe yourself, Laura, is that if you can actually avoid these things, you'll have a great brain. You know, you will be really sick. You'll be like the demigods, he said. So Prabhupada said, if you can actually stay away from this sort of stuff, because you see adults in their 20s, 30s, and they're all trying to give up these things, you know. Whereas at the time they were thinking, oh yeah, great, this is wonderful, I'm wonderful, you know. And at the end of it, you know, it's seemingly happiness, it's short-term happiness, and then total pain afterwards for so long, you know. So if we can spread this kind of this mood of no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, you know, if we could actually give that to society, society will be so much happier, you know. And the peace formula Prabhupada gave, Bhuktaram Yagatapasham Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutana Gyatvam Chantam Richati. It's 529, isn't it? Yes. 529. I won't do the translation of that, but that's the peace formula we'll come to that in many weeks' time, a few weeks' time, months. Sanjaya said, having spoken, this is Sanjaya, he's the witness, he's witnessing all this in his heart. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, chastiser of the enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So even in those verses, all Prabhupada says that Sanjaya, Dhritarashtra is looking on. He's looking on and he's seeing this, and Sanjaya is explaining it to him, and he's blind, but he's hearing it. And he's getting some hope up because he's hearing, Arjuna is going to give up. But then Sanjaya uses the word chastiser of the enemies for Arjuna, says, oh no, he's going to win. And he says, and Govinda, I shall not fight. So he's taking shelter of Govinda, which is another name for Krishna, who gives the giver of the greatest amount of pleasure. So we know Krishna is going to solve his problem just by even those words. And then the final verse today is, O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. And Prabhupada says that in the purport here, he says that this was being spoken in the midst of both the armies, and people were listening. Somehow or other, there were millions of people on both sides, and they were hearing what was going on. So it's a mystical thing. Bhagavad Gita is like that. It's a mystical thing. And
we may think they must have been mic and
yes,
speaker.
they didn't have iPhones as well, or amplification or big screen.
But where is it mentioned actually that both parties heard what Krishna and Arjuna's purport? Is it somewhere mentioned?
Yeah.
Or they only saw them from distance talking something? Or they actually heard it?
It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies, so that all were benefited.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's amazing.
And then Prabhupada at this point he says, so the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. Friends are equally entitled to hear them, For the devotee's vision. Is there any reflection? I went over it. You can see how I was just testing how to get the 10 out there. Sorry for reflection. Because it's quarter past 8, we don't want to long, but we maybe take one each or
Prabhupada quotes in purpose these very essential verses from Bhagavatam and different other scriptures.
Yeah. And
this ete chamsa, in our purpose text too, ete chamsa galapumsa, that you mentioned as well, it is called Paripasya Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam, the most essential verse of Bhagavatam. Why? Because oftentimes, especially India people, they say, oh, Krishna is incarnation of Vishnu. They say like this, right? Misunderstanding, misconception. But this is exactly the verse that all devotees should know in order to defeat that argument. If you know that the all incarnations of Krishna are all the incarnations are either portions or plenary portions of Krishna,
or either plenary expansions or parts of plenary expansions.
So, and Bhagavatam is Bhagavata Purana, one of the Puranas, which is authorized Vedic literature.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it is qualified verse, and that establishes Krishna as this source of all the other incarnation and the topmost supreme person. So this is a very important verse for all of us to. If somebody starts, giving arguments that no, Vishnu is first, and then Krishna comes from. No, this verse defeats that. So anyway, that's
very important.
The essential verse of Bhagavad. It's not just random verses here, Prabhupada chose, but it's very
it's incredible how deliberate it is. How he chose these very on.
With a reason. So it's nice.
Do you have any reflections? Anything striking? Hi, come in, it's okay. Do you want to see the temple, is it, or the altar? We're just... Okay, so we've done it, that's the first one. So we've just finished that, so it's fine. So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki, the first of many verses, eternally going on in Dublin Bhagavad Gita every week, 10 verses. 11 to 20 next week.